Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Today I'm going to be going over some really cool caustic stuff. As you guys can see here, I've already set up a little scene with some caustics, and I have this kind of more complex glass here. So if you look at the geometry, it's pretty complex. It has a lot of little divots in it, little different shapes, and then the inside's nice and smooth. But this is a glass object, and I do have caustics enabled, but I kind of want to mess around with this and see if I can recreate something that I saw in real life, which was a 10-point light source like ceiling. So right now we just have one light source, which is right here. And as you guys can see from my top-down view, when I move it, the caustics react in real time. Well, almost real time. But watch what happens if we take this light source and we duplicate it. Okay, so what is happening here is we now have basically like double the caustics. Now it's going to get really, really interesting really fast as we start adding more lights, but we need to go ahead and make sure that when we do this, we have some settings enabled. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the settings that I have actually done so far. So I'm going to start by just hiding this glass right here. I'm going to go ahead and just add a mesh. I'll just add a sphere into our scene here. So basically we are in cycles, guys. We have a light source. Now on the light source, you need to have checked shadow caustics. On your object here, you want to make sure this is a glass shader, okay? It helps to shade that smooth. And then you're going to want to also enable caustics on this. And to do that, you're going to want to go into your object properties under the shading tab and click on cast shadow caustics. As you can see, they're working right now, but the last step is you also want to go ahead and click on your plane and make sure receive shadow caustics is enabled as well. So you need to have those three things in order for this to work. Now this also works with different colors as well, as you guys can see. I'm going to go ahead and just delete one of the light sources for a moment so I can kind of explore this caustic effect with you a little bit more in depth. So as you can see, the light source itself right now is set to a radius of 0.11. So that's very low. So if I set this to 0, you'll notice how sharp this caustic shadow is. You can even see the very individual like segments of the object itself. But if you raise this radius up to 1, look at the drastic difference we're getting with these caustics. It's actually going to load a lot slower. So the actual radius of our light source is very, very important. Right now it's at 0.3. There is a fine line for where this radius sits. So the smaller it is, the more intricate your line work is going to be in your caustics. So I'm going to go ahead and hide this, and I am going to re-show this one, which is our glass. Now I got this from Blender Kit for free. You guys can go ahead and download that for free. There's plenty of different things you guys can experiment with in terms of the actual objects we're going to be using. But look what happens as I raise this up. Look at those caustics coming in. They look really, really good. I'm going to give that a second to just render out there in the viewport. That looks fantastic. I am just, wow. And that's one light source. Now, one of the things we can do that I believe I did in another project is I actually went to the IOR of the glass and I messed around with that too. Let's mess around with a lower IOR. As you can see, when we lower that value, we have the more light passing through our object. So you're going to get a different result there as well. And then, of course, if we went even lower, like 1.1, you have an even crazier effect. Let me go ahead and zoom in on those and let those render out just for a split second so you guys can actually see what is happening here. Now, you will notice there's a lot of jagged edges, and one of the reasons for that is just because of the complexity of this geometry. So again, your model itself is going to greatly impact the way these caustics look. But if we go to our radius and we give it like 0.1, now you can see that these caustics are much more kind of blurred out almost. Again, I'm going to let that render in the viewport so you guys can see this result here. So it does look fantastic, but again, guys, keep that in mind. Your radius of your light is going to drastically affect the way things look. Now, another factor that is going to affect this render is the background. So right now, the background is about like, it's kind of like a dark gray, so I'm going to bring it back down to black. As you can see, when I make that solid black, we have much more contrast in our caustics here. Now, of course, if I made this like light gray or white, you're barely going to see those caustics coming through. However, if you go and you click on your floor plane and you make that darker, you're going to see that it actually does not help our caustics at all. So see how you can see the caustics are enabled. You can barely see them right here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this back up to white, and then I'm going to make my world color darker. Now, as you can see, we have a great effect right here. This looks fantastic. Now, one of the things you can do, guys, because you guys know the IOR of glass is like 1.45 or 1.5. Right now, this is set to 1.1. So you're probably thinking, well, Kenny, I don't want to set my glass to 1.1 because then I'm not going to get a realistic render. That's entirely true. However, if you want to still achieve this incredible caustic effect, what you can do is you can actually hide this specific object and replace it with a glass object of the same exact mesh, but with a different IOR, so that you still get this nice caustic effect here without having to sacrifice the actual look of the glass itself. Again, when I zoom in here, guys, go ahead and look at these intricacies here within the caustics. It's so nice to look at. It just looks incredible. And I'm just so impressed with Blender's ability to do this. Now, one of the things I'm going to mess around with right now is I'm going to go to my top-down view here. I'm going to click on my light, and I'm going to duplicate my light source. Now, as you can see, our light source right now is set to 4000. So I'm going to actually experiment right now, and I'm going to set both of these to 1000 instead of 4000 because right now it's completely overexposed. There we go. That looks a lot better. Now, the actual proximity between these two lights is also going to drastically affect our render as well. So I'm going to squeeze them in a little bit closer. Okay, just like that. Now, as you can see, we still have this very intricate caustic effect, and you can see it's loading very slowly because of the amount of like light that has to pass through here and refract through this object. But look at the results. So here's what I'm going to do, and this is probably going to slow down my computer or possibly crash Blender. I am going to go ahead and select both of these lights, and I'm actually going to set up a lighting arrangement around our object. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the lights, rotate them, put them right here, and I'm going to do the same on this side. And what I have now is I have 6 lights total, and what I'm trying to do is see if we can get something really interesting happening here with our caustics. So let's go ahead back to rendered view, and let's go ahead and take a look at our results. Now, as we can see, it is working. However, it's extremely slow, and our light sources are probably just a bit too strong. So I'm going to go back to deleting all these. I'm going to keep these first two, and I'm going to do like, I think 300 for the power. Let's go ahead and try 300 for all of these and experiment one more time. Go to my top-down view, select them, duplicate, and rotate. And again, these aren't perfectly set up, but they're enough that should be good for our experiment here. Let's go ahead and see the results now. And as we can see, this is looking a lot better. And we're still getting multiple shadows from the multiple lights. And I do want to point something out. If I was to take these lights and move them, you can see how they affect everything. Now, the actual room that I was in had all of the lights directly above this specific wine glass I was looking at. I was getting this crazy matrix looking effect with the caustics right here, and it just looked incredible. So I had to try to recreate that. Now, right here, we're actually pretty close to it. You could get the real world distance and sizing for everything in our scene here. This already looks fantastic. Now, I'm curious. This is what it looks like right now with 6 point lights. Let's go ahead and turn off 5 of them. Keep just 1. Now, this is the effect with just 1. So I'm going to go ahead and just mess with this one for a second. You can see that if I go to my top-down view here and I mess with the actual specific location, we're getting this really, really cool kind of like matrix effect around our glass. And then as we move this down, you can see the caustics updating in real time. Now, this looks super cool. So this is just fun to mess around with. And of course, you can mess with the temperature of your light as well. But look what happens if we go ahead and put this inside of our glass object. Wow, look at that. I mean, that's just incredible. And I don't think it's perfectly centered, but you can go ahead and see the results right here. They kind of speak for themselves. The object itself is obviously helping a lot here because this object is very complicated with a lot of different like little ridges inside of it, but it just looks so good. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my viewport. I'm going to go ahead and make this light go back up. I'm going to show the rest of the lights. I'm going to bring them all back to the same level they were. This looks good. Now, right now, they're kind of in this random pattern, so I think I'm going to rearrange them. I'm going to go ahead to my random objects. There we go. So I think what I'm going to do is try to arrange them kind of like this. Again, this might not be perfect, but the room I was in, I think, had 10 ceiling lights like this, and I saw this really, really cool effect. So let's just go ahead and see what this looks like right now. All right, so as you can see, we don't have as cool of an effect, and I think it has to do with the distance these are as well. So I'm going to bring them up higher. Cool. Now, as you guys can see, our caustics are working, but again, they're not as apparent, and they don't look nearly as cool as they did before. So I'm going to bring these in on the X, and I'm going to highlight everything, bring it down, and I think I'm also going to scale everything in. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. As you guys can see, we have our 6-point lights, and we're kind of just experimenting with this setup here, but this looks so good. Yeah, I'm really happy with the way this is turning out here. Someone is very angry in the chat. I apologize. Whoever's angry, did I miss your question, or is there a specific reason that you're upset? Now, this looks really cool. So I just wanted to kind of show off some cool caustics that you guys can pull off in Blender. Again, the actual distance of the light source compared to your object is going to change the way that everything looks. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I was just kind of trying to show you guys how to set up some caustic effects, kind of how it really works, like in terms of the radius of the light, the power of the light, the amount of lights that you have. Again, if I turn these all off except for one, you still have your caustics, and they're going to load a lot quicker, but you kind of still have to experiment with that positioning of where your light is compared to your actual glass. So, or whatever object, doesn't have to be glass, but whatever you do have in your scene. And of course, don't forget, once your caustics are enabled on one object, you can simply duplicate that object. And now you have multiple objects with the same caustic properties in your scene, and they just look absolutely fantastic. And of course, you can expand that floor plane so that it catches all those beautiful caustic effects. And I think I might actually just make one of these blue and the other one orange. You know, Blender's theme here. That looks pretty good. And I think that looks so cool. This is just amazing. I mean, I am just so impressed. And it's actually rendering quite quickly. So I'm just going to set up a quick camera shot here. Let's go ahead and snap to camera view. And let's just bring it over here. And I'm going to face it towards our scene here. So I'm going to give it a nice, let's see, maybe negative 45 degrees. I'll set it up -5 and -5. And we'll do 5. Cool. All right. Something like that. And then we're going to go ahead and actually we're going to bring this way far back. And I'm going to go into solid view because this is so much easier when you're in solid view. There we go. And I'm going to rotate this down like that. Now this will probably end up being the YouTube thumbnail. Cool. Again, let's go ahead and check this out in rendered view. Fantastic. It looks incredible. I'm going to do without depth of field this time, but I am going to narrow in on my scene like this. This just looks so cool. Now, the only other thing I'll probably do just for scale purposes and to kind of give this a little bit of extra interest in the scene is I think I'm going to add like a nice shader to the floor. This already looks just so brilliant and amazing. You know, I do kind of want to center everything though, so I am going to center this light, and I'm going to attempt to also center these two glasses as well. Perfect. And again, I'm going to go ahead and center this around our scene, give that a nice 45-degree angle. Bring it right here. I kind of want this to be as symmetrical as possible, and then of course I can take my camera and I can also zoom out just a little bit, just really get those caustics in there. That looks awesome. All right, let's just give this this floor plane like a nice shader. First, I'm gonna raise the exposure just a little bit, and then of course you guys can also click on high contrast, which is further going to enhance that look. This just looks incredible. All right, let's go over to the shading tab, click on our floor plane, and I'm just going to give this a nice brick texture with 0 offset, and the scale we'll do 10, and we'll do 0.1 and 0.1 for our brick width, and then for the mortar size we'll go ahead and bring that down to 0.01, actually 0.005 maybe, something like that. And then we'll go ahead and hop into our rendered view, camera view, and scale everything up a little bit like that. That looks fantastic. And we still have those nice caustic effects. But don't forget, we're just doing this for kind of like testing purposes rather. Just a slight grid floor shader there. That looks fantastic. I'm going to actually make the mortar size just a little bit smaller so it's barely visible. Now the roughness of the floor itself, you can also adjust that. I think I'm going to put that all the way up. Specular, you can mess with that as well. I don't really touch that value much. And then of course the metallic value as well. Now this looks so good. So let's go ahead and go over some render settings. So in my render settings, I'm just going to do a total of 20 passes for everything. And then I'm going to filter glossy, I'm going to put that at 0. And then let's go ahead and, let's see, sample count we'll do 500. Denoising we'll do optics. And I guess I could add just one more element to our scene. I could add in, let's see if we can find one more nice looking glass. Let's see, hold on. Glass. I'm typing this in on Blender Kit here. Let's see if anything pops up. Just kind of look through this library here and see if there's anything fun that we can add to our scene. This one's kind of nice. There's like all types of glassware you can get for free. A lot of it's paid, but the ones that are free are very interesting. This one's kind of cool. We could try this one. All right, let's go ahead and put that into our scene there. And there it is. Go ahead and scale that up. And let's bring it over here. Right in the center here. Perfect. All right, now let's also give this a glass shader. In fact, I'm just going to copy. Actually, I'm going to make an entirely new shader. We'll do glass, and we'll do low roughness. We'll do 1.2 for the IOR, and we'll also enable caustics. Let's go ahead and check this out. And as you guys can see, the caustics are enabled for this glass too, and they look fantastic. Cool. I'm just going to center that as well. I mean, this looks incredible. It's so cool what you can achieve with Blender with just one light source, and of course you have your different glassware with different colors. They just look so good. I'm just so thoroughly impressed. The only other thing I could possibly add to this is maybe some water inside the cup, but even then, and of course I'm going to shade that auto smooth as well. But look how incredible that looks, guys. I just wanted to show that to you. This is pretty much, the tutorial is pretty much wrapped up at this point. I'm just going to adjust the scale of this floor a little bit. That looks good. And then I think I might actually plug in the FAC. Oh, what did I do last time? I think I plugged the FAC into the shader, the mix shader. Sorry, guys. Was it into displacement? Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, okay, there we go. So now if you zoom in, you can kind of see that the floor itself kind of has a like an actual texture to it. So hold on, let me just go to material preview. So if you really zoom in here, you can kind of see the floor itself has a texture to it. And then there's also this value here, mortar, I believe it's mortar smooth. Yeah, you can adjust this to kind of decrease or increase that. I think that looks fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and try and render this, and let's just kind of see how long this takes to render, and if our render settings are actually indeed going to work nicely. Let's go ahead and just compare that. Okay, so something is not quite right here. This is a little bit too bright. I'm actually going to make sure nothing... Oh, that's because all of our light sources were still enabled for render. Let's go ahead and try this again. All right, cool. So this is looking a lot better, a little bit more calm, yet we still have these caustic effects. It's saying we're going to get about a 4-minute render here, so I'm hoping that it does actually go through with that, although it might actually be quicker. Now already, even with however many passes it's done already, it just looks fantastic. There's no, I don't know, there's nothing I love more than this caustic effect. I could mess around with this all day. It just looks so good. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. I haven't even really gotten into any of the things you could really do with this. I mean, I was just kind of experimenting around. I wanted to drop this like kind of tutorial walkthrough to just kind of show you my process on how I experiment with these caustics. There's about 1:30 left, so I'll just talk about this a little bit more until this is done. Now, I do want to point out the final render, because right now you can see there's still some noise in here and there's some artifacts, but these can easily be cleaned up with more passes. Or, of course, you can... One of the tricks I like to use that not a lot of people talk about is you can actually double your resolution and lower your samples, and you can get some pretty high quality results doing that. Sometimes I'll do a 200% render with like 25 samples, and it'll come out fantastic. So here's our completed render. This looks fantastic right now. This is 1920 by 1080, and I'm on a 4K monitor, so it's actually, this is like the actual size, I think, or maybe like this. Actually, I think it's like this because it's about half the monitor. Yeah, that's about the actual size of the image. This just looks remarkable, and I wanted to share this with you guys because this is honestly like a low level example of what you can achieve with caustics. So I do hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got some value out of this kind of tutorial walkthrough. I'd be really excited to see what you guys come up with. Again, the only three things you have to have enabled to achieve this effect are caustics on your actual floor plane, so you need to be able to receive the shadow caustics, and then you need to be able to cast them with your glass objects, which are, in our case, are these orange and blue glasses, and then this one in the middle. And then the last thing is your actual light source that you're using. You're going to need to click on cast shadow caustics, or it might just say shadow caustics. Make sure that is enabled on those three things, or it will not work. So just keep that in mind, guys, as you create your projects. This came out fantastic. I'll definitely use this for the thumbnail or something similar. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Check out the Discord, check out my Instagram, my TikTok, of course the YouTube channel. There are so many more tutorials. There's a couple more tutorials on this actual topic, but I'll go over even more in the future. But I thought this was a great place to start back up on this topic because I just think it looks so good. So enjoy, guys. Have fun. Go ahead and experiment with these different values, these different glass shaders. Enable your caustics. Of course, the more powerful your computer is, the better these things are going to come out, the quicker they're going to render, but just be patient. These things do take long to render, especially when you're dealing with caustics. But have a great day, guys, and I will talk to you in the next tutorial.